All right, everybody, welcome to Locked On NHL. It's the trade deadline season, and usually we do our power rankings on Thursday, which we will get to. We will throw those up, but man, with this trade deadline season, the way that it's been, I haven't seen one like this in quite a while. We got to talk about some trades because they are happening fast and furious. New episode of Locked On NHL right now. Denker, let those trade dogs out, my man.
For Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On NHL podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. From Locked On Avalanche, I am Chris Maselli. From Locked On Tampa Bay Lightning, he is Mr. Adam Denker. We will get to the power rankings a little bit later. We have them divided up by division. This week, we've been changing it up, and we did Hart a couple weeks ago, and then we do conference. Then we've gone back to divisions for this week. So we'll show those a little bit later and kind of talk about really what this trade deadline and trade season, maybe looking forward, like how, who or even power ranking, like who did the best for this trade deadline season and how it impacts these power rankings going forward. But we'll start with just the amount of moves that we're seeing. I don't know if it's unprecedented. I don't keep track of how many are done year after year, but and there's always a good amount in the NHL, but it just seems like this year teams are just more than, a couple teams are just throwing all their chips in. It's many teams, almost all of them coming from the East. So what's your take so far just on the trades that we still have a day to go, but so there still could be more, but so far it's been, when you follow the league, it's been entertaining.
Yeah, Chris, it really has. And we spoke about it numerous times here, how really GMs were going to have to get really creative with some of the moves that they made. I think we could see the creativity right there with the Patrick Kane deal, having Arizona kind of just be like a middleman for that to facilitate.
Is that creative anymore? It's just like, I guess if you just need a trade to get done and you need someone to retain salary, can we deem it as creative anymore to just get, maybe it's creative to get a team other than Arizona involved, but man, they'll just take anything.
I mean, I also looked at and we'll talk about it too. I think one of my favorite trades, just because I feel like there was a reasoning as to why Columbus made this trade, but the Jonathan Quick trade was a very interesting one because Vegas not being able to get a deal done with LA, because why would LA make that deal with Vegas and trade their franchise goaltender? I mean, that whole deal is very strange, but yet exciting for me because I'm a huge Jonathan Quick fan. But yeah, I mean, I love like all the trades that have happened, whether they're the big blockbuster ones or the small ones. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right when it comes to the East. The East is just, you guys got it easy out there in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
the East is just going to be. I think really what it comes down to with the Western Conference is, whoever can make it to the Stanley Cup. Basically you're going to have, I wouldn't say an easy time, but definitely you're going to run into a very banged up Eastern Conference team in the
whoever
final.
comes. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's like for my team, like for Colorado, it's like, do you want to make moves? Sure. And they are making some moves.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you really have to overextend yourself right now? Because nobody else in the conference is.
Right.
So if you're comfortable with where you're at and you feel like you can compete with what you have, you made some moves. Yeah, there's other teams like the Jonathan Quick move and stuff like that. But nobody is doing these Patrick Kane, Tarasenko, Chychrun moves over on the West. So most of the teams in the upper echelon teams in the West are kind of just doing the the Chewbacca gift, just putting his arms back and all right, we'll just take our chances. And then whoever comes out of the East is going to be put through the ringer and they're going to be beat up by the time they get to the Stanley Cup final. I want to ask you though about that Jonathan Quick move and do, because it feels like there's a line in the sand, and people are saying like they did him dirty. He's an all-timer as a LA King. Let him ride out his contract and then get rid of him, or like, because there just seemed to be like, or maybe there was a little bit more than I'm thinking, but I didn't really hear a ton of, it might be a possibility that they trade him. And then it seemed like it was a complete surprise to him that they did it. They did it kind of like in the middle of the night after the game was complete. And then they throw that info on him. So what side are you on? Are you on the side of like, you should do right by a player like him who means that much to that franchise? Or are you on the side of, nope, this is a business down to the bitter end, and everybody anybody and everybody could be up for trade?
I'm on the side of a business. I look at it this way. If the Oilers traded Gretzky, I think anybody is tradable.
Yeah, I've heard that a few. Yeah,
And
you can't argue.
Listen, I would have loved to have seen, with a lot of people, seen quick kind of end things there in LA. And but at the end of the day, we've spoken about quite a bit this year how LA is not too far off from possibly being a contender in the West. And, they did the right thing. They got a very good goaltender in Jonas Korpisalo, and then, a little bit of a death piece and Vladislav Garakov. So I think they did the right thing. And I think also, like I said before, and until I hear otherwise, I really think that at the end of the day, Vegas really wanted him, and there was no way in hell that LA was going to trade him to Vegas. So,
Right.
Columbus acting as though a little bit of on Arizona.
A little bit of a middleman there, right?
A little bit of a middleman there.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, I think it was a good deal. I think, it did suck the circumstances. I think they were actually on a flight going back to LA or going somewhere else where he actually found out. So, that's kind of a bad way, I guess, for one of your franchise's greatest goaltender to find out. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business.
It's tough. Like, to me, I don't know. Like, I would go both ways on that, and it would have to depend. Like, if it was talked about at different times during the season, like, hey, like, this is a possibility. If you're open with the player, then you're within your rights. You're still within your rights, even if you're not open with the player. Maybe it's a little bit more shady way to do business.
Yeah.
But, you're at the end of the day, your GM stuff is going to make those decisions. And in the end, what are you trying to do? You're trying to win a championship. And if they really felt like the move improved their team, you're going to do it. And to me, I don't know, like as guys kind of age, like, and they've gone through most of their career, all of their career with one team. When it's me, I don't like to see it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
So, now it gets real interesting, because that could be a matchup in the playoffs. And don't tell me that he's not sour on this whole thing. So, man, if that's a series, that is going to be a must-watch series, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, there's a couple other moves that we are going to get to, but why don't we hear from FanDuel before we get to that, which is the Max Domi deal. Max Domi going to Dallas. So how's that improve them? But first, FanDuel, and we are at the midway point, beyond the midway point of the NBA season. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line, 2 points scored, to 3-pointers drained. Anything that you've been betting on lately, Mixtape?
I've just been basking in the post-Super Bowl glow.
Oh, you hit
right
a home
now,
run in the Super Bowl,
after I put on that. I really did. I really did a good job there. Not to get too full of myself there, but
yeah. But you got your second. You got your second Tesla, basically, is what you're saying.
My second Tesla. My second summer home in Monaco. So, no, but I'm looking at the FanDuel odds right now. I really like the Carolina odds. I really like the even the Toronto odds, as much as that pains me. Carolina at 750 to win the Stanley Cup, Toronto at 950, and then Boston's obviously in front with the best odds, and right behind them, believe it or not, if you would have told me 4 months ago, your boys at plus 650, second best odds to win the Stanley Cup. So
yeah,
a lot of good odds to go around right now,
definitely.
especially things changing with the trade deadline. We might see those change in the next 24 hours.
Exactly. So if you feel good about a team with the moves they've made, get in on that now before that's changed a little bit too much. And over at FanDuel, they even let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. I think your cat likes that. Don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So, yeah, you had a deal with the Blackhawks and the Dallas Stars for Max Domi. I think they sent, I'm trying to get the trade up here. It's not updated on the website, but I think Anton Khudobin went and a third round pick, I believe, went for Max Domi. So this is kind of like it's almost like what's left out there right now. I didn't think like all of these bigger names would be gone. And right now it's just like, I don't want to say slim pickings, but it's like kind of like the leftovers. And you have guys like Max Domi and JVR who are still up there. Bukestad went, so he's gone. Like, so you have all these players that can still do things and be meaningful to teams who acquire them. Do you think it moves the needle much for Dallas? Because they've been one of those teams in the West who've been relatively quiet in the trade deadline. So they pick up Domi, good offense, not so good defense, but you would have to think it improves them.
Yeah, I think it gives them an edge. I don't know how much of an edge. I mean, does Max Domi get you to the Stanley Cup final? I really don't know.
No, right.
But I think it doesn't hurt your chances. I think it helps you definitely in a potential series against the Oilers, because I think at the end of the day, that's the team that's been making all the moves out in the West that everyone's looking at.
I'm actually just on Twitter, looking up details. It's actually Max Domi's birthday today. So you got traded on your birthday. I mean, can't help that. I get it. But I mean, maybe you're happy to be leaving Chicago and going to a first place team in the division. Why not?
Better weather. So, why not?
Yeah. You had the Jacob Chikrin deal, who obviously he goes to Ottawa, and that saga comes to an end. And I'm a little, I don't know, like I want to say I'm a little bit surprised, because it just seemed like what Arizona was doing was trying to have that Joe Sakic, Matt Duchene deal, like where he's just going to cash in. They wanted like 2 firsts and a prospect. And then that kind of came down a little bit to, a first and a prospect, or a first and a second that could turn into, there was so many different variations, but they had to move off of their initial ask, which was a ton for him, because teams just aren't ponying up that much money for, or all those picks, because especially with the salary cap really not moving all that much. So they had to come down from it. And I think they did in a way, but they still get the first round pick. And what do you think this does for Ottawa? I mean, there's no guarantee that they're going to even make the playoffs this year.
No, I think Ottawa is looking at next year with this deal.
So?
I mean, if they sneak into the playoffs, that's just a plus for them. But I think they're just looking towards next year. I don't think I think when they made this deal, they didn't really have anything else in mind when it came to, are we going to get in the playoffs? No, they're still rebuilding. And I'm sure any Senators fan would say this is, at the end of the day, you're trying to build towards the next 3 years, not the next 3 months.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to look up the the standings right now for them. 64. They got 64 points. So Pittsburgh, who's playing as we're recording this, right? Yeah, they're playing your boys, aren't they?
Yeah, they're playing tied 4-4 with about 3 minutes and change in the third period.
Okay. So they're 5 points behind Pittsburgh. It's not insurmountable, but there's a lot of teams that they have to jump over to get there. So there's still 20 games left for them. Anything is possible. But I think a lot of people are thinking, like, yeah, if they do make it, congratulations, good for you. But yeah, you're looking at this is a move for them going forward by far. And I think it's a very, very good move for them that just, ignites the fan base easily. And yeah, you're getting pieces in the right slots for Ottawa to be a major player next year while still giving you a chance to see what happens for the remainder of the year. I like the deal. I think there was a number of teams in on him. I mean, over the course of how long they've been dangling him out there, I would almost venture to guess every single team was at least contacted them. But it seemed like the Kings were heavily involved. The Oilers were heavily involved, and you did hear Ottawa. You heard Carolina, but Carolina goes out and gets Shane Gostisbehere, so that maybe takes them off the table. So, and then that's what happens. It just dwindles down, and then Arizona has a decision to make. Do we hang on to him for the remainder of the year, see what we can do in the offseason, or unload him now? They obviously chose to unload him now. And, Arizona of the, 32 picks in the first round has about 17 of them, I think. Or 17 picks for the first like 2 or 3 rounds. It's crazy the capital that these guys are building up. Now they just have to do something with it.
Yeah.
You got to do something with this. You can't keep doing this if you're Arizona.
Do you trade them all for the first overall pick?
Are you doing a Mike Ditka New Orleans Saints for Ricky Williams deal? Like give up
are you doing
everything?
every pick you have for the next 2 years for the first overall pick for Connor Bedard?
I don't even know if any team would do that, but let me see how many they got. So they have 2 in the first round, 1 in the second, 4 in the third. Next year, they have 1 in the first, 4 in the second, 3 in the third. And then in 25, they have 1 in the first, 4 in the second, 2 in the third. They got, that is a ton. I don't know where you're going to put all these players. I'm venturing to guess they are not going to hang on to each and every one of those picks. They'll probably package those a lot together, move up and down. But you got to hit it good if you're Arizona going into these next few drafts. You have everything kind of going in your favor, really, in terms of like you have all these draft picks. You have a brand new arena, but it's like a brand new city that they're building or about to build. Like, and then if you can attract someone like, your homeboy and Austin Matthews to come, like, why would he want to go back there now? You have a couple years before you can show someone like him, like, this is what we're building, and you would put us over the top. But they the fan base there, I think, is wearing thin. You cannot keep just redoing this and regurgitating this stuff over and over and over again. There has to be a time where you're like, enough is enough. And now, like, if you're making these moves now, make them worth something. You don't want to be this team year in and year out.
Yeah, no, it's either put up or shut up at this point. I mean, especially with, like you said, they're building a new arena. I mean, you definitely want to get bodies in there and butts in the seats. So you got to put some sort of product onto the ice instead of, a bunch of. Yeah, I thought it was funny, Chris. I don't know if you saw the post. Arizona kept posting. I don't know if it was Arizona or if it was like if it was one of the hockey pages where it was like the long line of like superstars where they actually put like Patrick Kane as like an Arizona Coyote because they were the third team. Because technically, I guess he had to go through the Arizona franchise in order for that trade to work.
Right. So for a hot second, he is technically a Arizona Coyote, knowing full well that, Arizona can't then just say like, we're stopping the deal and he's ours. Like, no, you can't do
He
that.
was as good as a Coyote as Jonathan Quick was a Blue Jacket.
Exactly. Maybe better. All right, let's hear from Indeed, and then we'll bring up these power rankings and kind of rank who we think did best so far in the trade season. So if you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you are guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. And Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed's Instant Match assessments and virtual interviews. And with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. With Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their post, according to Indeed data. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked-on. That offer is valid through March 31st. Once again, Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, one last bit of stuff we want to get to, and that, of course, is the power ranking. So if you are watching over on YouTube, we're going to get that up on full screen right there, and that is by division, obviously. And we're at the point in the season where things don't really change all that much, but there is some movement a little bit here and there, especially with the Central, where my guys are. The Avalanche moving up to 2, and the Jets, who seem to be kind of like a solid number 2 for the Central, they've moved down to 4. Struggling a little bit are the Winnipeg Jets. But when it comes to the trade season, who are the teams that you think really kind of position themselves better than the rest? So if you were to power rank, say, your top 3 teams in terms of what they did in the trade deadline or trade season, what would they be?
On paper, I would have to put. I get you said top 3, top 5.
Sure. I mean,
Top
if you
3,
want to
top
go,
5.
if you got a tie for 3rd, you can throw out a bonus 4th if you want to.
I would say for 3. I mean, you never know with bringing in that many guys what's going to happen, but Toronto just they went for it. You got to respect, and they had to after all the disappointment they've had over the last 80 something years or whatever, how long it's been. They swung for the fences, and they brought in some good pieces, and it's obviously, as with any sport, it's a different story once those guys get onto the field, or in this case the ice, how they're going to gel together and how long it's going to take for them to build chemistry. So I would say Toronto's at 3. I like what Vegas did. I think that bringing in Quick, now, obviously, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. But like you said, they might get the Kings in the first round. So that might help them in terms of playoff success. They really needed a goaltender. And I think I saw a crazy stat with them, Chris, and you'll like this. I think they traded all 5 of their original draft picks, or like the first 5 draft picks ever that they've ever had. So
really,
they're officially, I guess, in somewhat of a rebuild, or if you want to even call it. I don't even know what that would constitute, like what term that would be. And then my number 1 team, I think it's just Boston. I just think getting Bertuzzi just helps you look a lot more scarier than you already are now. I mean, Linus Ullmark is playing out of this world, and you add Tyler Bertuzzi, especially with Taylor Hall going on LITR, I mean, that makes you a whole lot tougher of a team.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the two teams that, just jump out right away definitely are Boston and of course the Rangers. And you just like you look at and Toronto, and you look at those three teams and you're like, how were you able to acquire all of that and stay cap compliant? Like it's an art, and it's a schooling in cap management, and they knocked it out of the park. Definitely. How I would rank them, like I want to. I think the Devils getting Timo Meyer is big. What I mean, you have to acknowledge that. I like what Carolina did. I don't like the teams that go after like needs instead of just the big name. I like that stuff. Like I feel like that is a GM who's in tune with his team and what they specifically need. So for them, like going to get someone like Shane Gostisbehere, I think that's a smart move. And Pugliarvi is the other one that they brought in. I think that's a smart move. So they didn't. I don't want to say blow things up like Toronto like blew things up in a good way, hopefully for them. Carolina looked at it as like we have a solid team. Let's just fine tune it a little bit, and that's what they did. That's what they went out and got. So I like stuff like that. I know that's not like the big, like splash, sexy moves, but it's the smart moves. And I think that's going to pay off for Carolina going down there because they got a couple guys that they have to get acclimated to the team. Not like Toronto, where you brought in like 10 guys or however many you brought in to get like that could take a little bit of time. You know what I mean? And you're not hitting the playoffs. It might take you that amount of time to get all on the same page. So I like what the Devils did. I like what the Hurricanes did. But yeah, man, I think like if we're ranking the top three, I think you'd have to put Toronto in there. Some people would be like, oh, it's a little bit too much. They did a little bit too much. Uh, I'm not going to say that right now. Maybe you can have that conversation if they don't do anything in the playoffs again. Then you can say that. But to get the guys that they got, how can if you can pull all those off, go for it. And they did. So I'd put them at number 3. I'd probably put Boston at number 2, and I would put the Rangers at number 1. Getting Tarasenko, getting Kane. I think they are from top to bottom as strong as what Boston is, if you ask me now. So, and including a goaltender that is all world as well. So,
well, let me ask you something, Chris. Do you think that it's going to be easier, or you're going to see the success a lot sooner with Kane in New York, or is it a lot easier for a goaltender like Quick to go into a situation and succeed right away? I mean, with a goaltender, you really don't have to like really rely on chemistry. I mean, it's just really you against the defense. I mean, obviously you have your teammates and you need to know where they are and get to know where they are. But I feel like, and I spoke about this on my show, and I was curious. I brought it up because of Toronto and then especially the Rangers, all those moving parts. I feel like it's more beneficial to a team like Vegas or whoever at that point when I was talking about whoever was going to get Jonathan Quick, to bring in a goaltender instead of bringing in a couple of scorers and kind of just hedging your bets that they're going to find their way as the games go on. Do you feel like it's a better situation for a team bringing in a goaltender or bringing a guy like Patrick Kane or Vladimir Tarasenko or the list goes on?
I mean, I think they both have their benefits, obviously, in terms of like just picking up and playing. I think a goalie has a little bit easier time. There's a system that he needs to be aware of in terms of like where his defenders are going to be and stuff like that and how they play defense. You can pick that up, I think a little bit quicker, and in the end, you're in the same position you were no matter what team you were. Like you're in that blue paint, right? And you can figure out like the nuances of your defenders, I think, a little bit quicker than learning a brand new system. This is why NFL teams don't do a lot of trades, because that's teams take all off season to learn a playbook, and to acquire somebody at a trade deadline and tell him, you know, like, hey, you got, you know, a week to learn this thing is difficult. It's a little bit easier in the NHL, and I think someone like Patrick Kane and even Vladimir Tarasenko can pick up what, you know, a team is doing and slot themselves in pretty comfortably. Lars Eller for the Colorado Avalanche was traded and played that night for them. He made a short flight. I think they were playing in California, and he flew to Colorado and played. He was traded, and like 8 hours later, he's playing for them. So, you know, I mean, like it's doable. Like for the most part, I think hockey players understand how the system works, and we'll fine tune the nuances as we go along here in the last month plus.
Yeah.
And you just go from there. But yeah, I think as a goalie, it's maybe a little bit easier time because you're sitting in that same position of the team that you just left.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. And as you were actually talking, Pittsburgh did beat my boys in overtime 5-4. So I believe that leapfrogs them over the New York Islanders in the wild card race in the East. And well, the Rangers did win tonight, so they
No,
do.
they didn't.
Oh, they lost?
They lost. They
Oh,
lost
wow.
5-3 to Ottawa.
Things are getting
Patrick Kane, no points, -2. So that trade's a failure. No, okay. So, all right, that'll wrap it up for today. When we come back next week, trade season to be over and full steam ahead to the playoffs. So we'll have a brand new set of power rankings for everybody. Then we'll see how we do it by division, by conference. We don't know. We'll have them for you though. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Mr. Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. I'm Chris Maselli from Locked On Avalanche. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'll go full screen with those power rankings one last time. And hope your team did well during the trade season. It was always fun. It was a good one this year, we got to say. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next week.